This video will cover B and T lymphoblastic leukemia and lymphoma risk factors. Let's first cover how we're going to anchor ourselves to the fact that this video refers to leukemia and lymphoma. Notice the star character here. I have to admit, I'm actually not into this movie at all, but hey, it serves for our purposes here. But even if you're not into the movie, it's likely you know that this is Luke Skywalker. Since the name Luke sounds like leukemia, that is what we're going to use. Oh, and he's also wearing this white outfit, which can even be another clue to help us remember leukocytes, or white blood cells. To remember lymphoma, just look at his green lightsaber, because lymph things are usually represented in green, right? Okay, now let's talk about the two prompts that are going to help us remember B and T cells. To remember B cells, look at his meal of choice here. Very interesting. He went with Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are round and start with a B, just like B cells. To remember T cells, we're going to use this fast food restaurant here named Taco Cell, which sounds close to T cell. Alright, now let's actually cover the risk factors. Down syndrome is represented by none other than this goalpost here, which is right around the area where touchdowns are scored, right? Touchdown represents Down syndrome for us. Fanconi anemia is represented as in previous videos by this falcon here, for obvious reasons. It looks like Luke decided to take himself out on a nice date. Good for him. He even wore his cologne named Lilac for Men. This cologne represents Li Frameni. The Li is represented by lilac, and Frameni is represented by the for men portion. The next risk factor is ataxia telangiectasia. Of course, since he took himself out on a date, he brought his favorite toy, a taxi cab. The taxi will help us remember ataxia telangiectasia. Oh, I knew he had good taste, even though he ordered Brussels sprouts. He's got a nice blooming onion waiting for him next. Blooming onion, for us, is going to represent Bloom syndrome. Okay, now we've reached the last portion. You know how I've been hammering on how I do not like Brussels sprouts? Well, this prompt has to do with that. You see this dip he has here? This dip represents diploidy. BALL and BLBL are associated with poor prognosis when there is hypodiploidy and with good prognosis when there is hyperdiploidy. Let's think about it this way. Remember how Brussels sprouts represents B cells? Well, if you were to dip them in the sauce, it would make it better, just like good prognosis. And if you do not dip it, that will make them worse, just like bad prognosis. So, dipping Brussels sprout represents hyperdiploidy and good prognosis. Not dipping it represents hypodiploidy and bad prognosis.